Hello and welcome to Health Live at Seniors Today. You would have just seen the opening video and uh, various doctors who have featured here. But I must tell you that we've had over 250 doctors over the last 4 years, 4+ years, and there's one person who's done the maximum number of sessions in these in these last 4.5 years, and that's our guest today, Dr. Monika Das. And I am delighted to have her here with us. This is her 14th session. I just counted. And but what I'm going to do is, before I introduce her, and I'm going to request our producer to play a short video. Right. Thank you. So the reason why I wanted to play this video was that as part of this video, we have a very special and detailed article on loneliness. And to write that, we requested Dr. Monika Das to, to write about it, to discuss the issue, and which she has done in great detail. And we only thought it appropriate to invite her to speak to you, all of you, as well as to address your questions. Let me introduce her first. Dr. Monika Das is a chartered psychologist, a chartered scientist, and an associate fellow of the British Psychological Society. Professionally, she has counseled over 15,000, perhaps 20,000 now, in a span of over 20 years, and has published several papers in both Indian and international journals. She's a trained pianist and a vocalist from the Trinity College of Music in London. And she has influenced the lives of many with the joyful learning of music. She has been actively involved in several popular musicals such as The Sound of Music, Joseph and His Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and so on. And as I mentioned to you, she has been a great friend of Seniors Today. She writes a monthly column called Mind Matters, and which is about all issues concerning the mind. And this time she's written the what may have been perhaps the main story, but for the unfortunate passing away of Mr. Ratan Tata. But and we also have an article apart from Dr. Das's, which is about loneliness in Indian and international films. So do have a look at it. We just thought that we'll make it a little lighter, the entire topic, and looked at how loneliness has been tackled in cinema. But without any further ado, I'm going to invite Dr. Monika Das to speak to us. Instead of a presentation, she's going to be speaking to us and for around 10 odd minutes, and then you can put in your questions in the Q&A tab or in the chat tab, and we'll be happy to address it to her. You can, if you'd like. In fact, I will say this, that we will not take the names of any of you who are asking questions, just to keep the confidentiality. So feel free to ask whatever questions you want, because this is the time that you can ask, with enough freedom and with no hesitation. Over to you, Dr. Das.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maheshwari. Loneliness is a topic which affects all of us. When we're very young, none of us realize how lonely it can be when you become an adult, particularly, with grandparents. I'm talking about youngsters, your grandchildren. They have no idea about what it's like to be lonely. They have no idea about what is probably happening in the senior person's life. And it's a very touchy subject for the senior person. It's also pretty traumatic for many seniors who perhaps live alone, who maybe maybe living with family members but are lonely because perhaps family members are busy and they don't have or give enough time to you. So there are various aspects to this business of loneliness. The main thing which none of us realize when we're very young is what it's like to be lonely. Having said that, and having dealt with a lot of youngsters today, I've discovered something which is very interesting. I find them also extremely lonely. I find the younger generation particularly lonely. So it's obviously perhaps becoming not a pandemic, but it's certainly around, and I think we need to overcome this. The main thing about loneliness, one of the key things, is that all of us need to be busy. We need to be kept busy. Now, you need to have a schedule, starting right from the time you wake up, say at about 6:30 if you're an early riser, till the time you go to bed. And it needs to be a fairly easy but planned schedule so that you have an idea of what you're going to be doing during the day. Um, and yet it's an easy schedule, as I've already mentioned. And you need to do a variety of things, not just the same thing, You need to put in that variety. Now, this business of being lonely, whether you're in a family or whether you're living alone, many people who live alone are not lonely. And many of them, I've met them, particularly in the West, you find a lot of elderly people who perhaps are 85, 90, very independent, living on their own, running their own homes. And it's something admirable. There are many pros to this business of actually handling and running your own home because it gives you something to do. You don't have a family member taking over and doing things for you. So if you're fit and able, one of my key suggestions to you is to be able to do things which you enjoy doing, but have a planned schedule through the day which goes from, say, having your morning cup of tea or a hot drink, whatever it is, to yoga, to aerobics, to whatever you enjoy particularly, right through the day where you're planning your finances, perhaps catching up with a friend, maybe doing some meditation, things like that. And you go into the evening, you're doing some reading or you catch up with some friends. So you need to have these plans. And that the key to this whole business of not being lonely or not remaining too lonely is having a plan and action for yourself. So that's the number one point. The second thing, which is a very difficult thing for any of us to do, is you need to force yourself to get out and you need to meet people, particularly if you're on your own and there's nobody to talk to during the day. It can be anybody from, say, the local shopkeeper, you know, to somebody who you're walking around. You go to a bookstore, for example. So the key thing here is you need to make contact and you need to start a conversation, because if you don't, you could go through several days of having not spoken to anybody and just living your life, in a fashion which is perhaps robotic, but not meaningful. So it's very important to force yourself to get out and make contact, whether it's, if you're on a bus, greeting the a bus conductor in a happy manner, talking to somebody who's sitting next to you. So you are actually forcing yourself out of your area of comfort. So these two things, one is perhaps keeping a busy schedule for yourself, and the other one is actually getting out and making contact with people. Are two key, very very key things to this business of not remaining lonely. What I've discovered with people who are alone, many people who are alone have, you get lonely because you're very dependent on, you've been dependent on, say, your spouse, who's done things for you always. You've been dependent on, say, a family member who's always done things for you. You actually need to get out and get going and do something for yourself, and that's very important. Now, one of the main problems for loneliness, one of them is basically physically it can harm you, and it's one of the reasons why you need to get out. It can also lead to early death. Something like Alzheimer's could set in also. So that's why it's important to keep your mind going. Most people, I mean, there's 1 in 3, in fact, in the population where loneliness has sort of hit them. And if you actually think about it, we're social animals. We prefer to be with people. We prefer to be surrounded by people. And if we're lucky enough, if we have a warm, loving family, then nothing like it. But if you actually look at the pace of work and society today, everybody seems to be busy. Everybody. There's nobody who's not busy. Even your children or your grandchildren are busy. Now, how do you get time with them? They need to schedule that in, whether it's half an hour or 40 minutes with you, just chatting with you, finding out how things are, or vice versa, you spending time with them and finding out what their day was like. So these things are very important. One of the key things about not being lonely, as I mentioned before, is you need to really start talking about yourself. Lonely people tend not to want to open up. They are shy, they are diffident, they do not wish to actually share their life or their experiences with people. Um, and if you actually look at a two-way conversation that takes place between anybody, you need to initiate conversations. And the only way to do it is to actually force yourself out of this business of waiting for somebody to start a conversation. So this is one of the key things about it. So how do you get rid of loneliness and how do you become happy? In many of my sessions before, I've talked about doing things like yoga, meditation, going for long walks, meeting up with friends, or say going to the theater or to a good concert, spending quality time with your family during the day or in the evenings if they're busy during the day, spending time with your grandchildren. Now, how do the younger generation can learn a lot from you. So the key thing to do is to find out when they are free and if they can even give you 10 minutes of their time. That quality time in terms of interacting with them, finding out how they were, what they were doing, who their friends are there any issues that they're dealing with that needs to be resolved. Your advice, your ideas could help them stabilize themselves. And the younger generation needs that. Um, so it's better not to sort of, refrain from not saying anything or being worried about what your daughter-in-law, son-in-law, or whoever it is that you live with, you're constantly worried about your P's and Q's, and perhaps you're kept trying to be careful. I feel an elder has a lot to give the younger generation. And if you're able to impart that before you leave this world, there's nothing like it. Um, I shared a lot with my grandmother when she was in from her, from a very early age. And I've had some wonderful experiences, conversations, and learned a lot from her. I have a mother who's 83 years old presently, and I just wanted to give you this example. I've always felt adamant about the fact that it's very important for her to run her own home, to handle her own finances, and to actually make her own decisions, from her insurance to her car to whatever, what have you. Um, and she may not realize it. I mean, there are times when she does get bogged down and she gets tired. But one of the key things for her, which I've realized, is that it's kept her going, because we've not taken it away from her. My brother and I haven't taken everything away from her. So we've given her that opportunity for her to make those decisions, rather than us making decisions. If she asks us for advice, that's fine. That's different. So these are some of the key things which I've experienced in my life, and I feel these are some, important things for us to imbibe and perhaps keep in mind. I'm very happy to handle any questions in case you have any, and I'll hand you over to Sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have somebody who's from your city, from Aurangabad, or should I say Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar. Uh, there's one person who's said loneliness and introvert. Are they both the same or different?
They're very different. An introvert is a person who doesn't share things too easily with the world. An introvert is a person who they're not unhappy people, but they tend to keep things to themselves. Loneliness is different. Loneliness is feeling absolutely alone. It's a feeling that comes from within you, you know. It's you can be in a crowded room and still be lonely. So it's actually a feeling that hits you, as compared to, say, being an introvert and not really mixing with people. That's very different.
Okay, we have somebody who's 75. Says all through everything is there, but still sometimes loneliness. Uh, and she wants to know what is the remedy for this.
The remedy is you have to find things that you enjoy doing. I'm very clear about that. This is what I was trying to say. You don't have to be busy all the time, but you have to identify things which you enjoy doing, and not expect others to keep you entertained. That's also very important. If you watch the younger generation now, their their whole and soul entertainment is actually gadgets. So they're always dependent on something else for entertainment. And if you actually look at our generation, or maybe people who are older than us, we never had any of these gadgets around us in our early years. And yet we managed. Yet we managed.
Right.
And yet there was a quality of life. And we did things. So it's the point I'm trying to get to is, rather than being dependent on somebody, find something which makes you independent and keeps you happy and keeps you going. And you have to do a variety of things. That's important, not the same thing.
You know, one of the things that I've often wondered is that while at one time, at one point you have various things like your streaming services, your Netflix and Prime videos, etc. of the world. So you don't really have to step out of the house to entertain yourself, to watch entertainment. At another level, you also have these things tying you to the house, so that even if there's a new movie that has come or whatever, there is enough entertainment that is available. And so you say, why even go to a cinema hall? You can just watch everything. What is your view? What is the obviously there has to be a mix of both things that one must do. So while seniors have now the option of of just staying at home and being a, a
A
couch
couch
potato
potato.
in the true sense of the word. But at the same time, it's important to step out and keep entertaining yourself. And uh, what do you feel?
I feel extremely strongly about the fact that one needs to get out. If it doesn't have to be every day or every week, but at least once every 10 days, you need to get out and, go to catch a movie. Could be a 3:30 show. You don't have to go for a night show. You can get back in time, home in time for dinner and things like that. But it's just the fact that you've stepped out and you have seen a whole lot of different people. Maybe you've communicated with somebody who's totally different sitting next to you at the movie theater. And that's it. Doesn't have to be anything more. But the act of getting out of your home and doing something different is important. It's, I think with COVID and with this business of staying at home and being entertained by Netflix, Prime, Disney, what have you, you get some wonderful movies. And I have to admit, I do enjoy a good movie or two. But I also think you need to get out, and I do that. And I have to drag my husband, by the way, because he's very happy to be at home watching a movie. That's very important.
A question that we've just got is kindly suggest some ways to mold your partner from being alone if he is the introvert type.
If he is,
The introvert type.
we can't change people. You know this. You know this. Can't change people. It's not easy. But you can make suggestions. Don't nag. I mean, that's important. You can't nag a person. You can't force them to do things you want them to do. Um, but you can make suggestions and you can try and do some fun things which perhaps the person will enjoy rather than doing only things which you enjoy. You have to figure this one out. It's like walking a tightrope. It's a delicate balance, basically. So the idea to get an introvert to do things which you want to do is to get them interested in things. Now, what is an introvert going to do? The introvert is going to say no to most things, right? But the introvert does do things at home. There are things that an introvert does do at home. It's not like the person is just sitting over there and staring blankly at the wall. So figure out the kind of things he enjoys and then take it one step further. It could be perhaps getting a couple of friends in to get the introvert going. It could be organizing, say, a picnic somewhere for an hour or two. It could be going on a trek, a short trek, nothing difficult, where the introvert and a couple of other friends are there together. So, what are you doing? There's a sense of camaraderie that seeps in. You're out in nature, you're doing something different. You're also hopefully changing the person who you're trying to change yourself. And it does happen. It's a very, very slow process, believe me. You can't change people otherwise. You can't force them to do the stuff that you want.
Interesting thing that has just come in. But in a city like Mumbai, it rains for 4 months, and that is a good enough excuse for just staying indoors.
Does it really? I mean, are you telling me that for 4 months you're just going to stay indoors and not step out at all?
But I'm saying this is a thing that has just come in. Um, uh, there's an interesting question which has come in. How do you spot a lonely man or a woman?
Uh, their eyes. Their eyes are a dead giveaway. There's this deep sense of sadness in them. Their body language, they could be slouching. You could find that there's a vacant look on their face, which they're not, that enthusiasm is not there in them. But the dead giveaway is basically the eyes and their body language around them. And a lonely person, by the way, is probably not doing much, even in the home. This is important for you all to understand. If you're not lonely, you will find things to do to keep you busy, to keep your mind occupied. If you're the lonely type, you're happy to just sit and do nothing and generally stare into space, stare out of a window. How long can you do that for? So you can make these people out, but you have to get them out of that. You can't just sit there for hours on end staring out of a window blankly.
We have a question that is
Have
coming.
I answered that
Yes, you
question?
have. You have. There's a question that is coming, which is, why are men more lonely than women?
You know why? Men are very reserved. They're actually, they may be, supposedly it's a man's world that we live in, and they may be macho and whatever that one associate, the comments that you associate men with. But men are actually essentially very lonely beings. They're shy, they're innately shy human beings. And most times you'll find the woman uh, pulling him out, do stuff, talking, getting him going. And you'll find men responding to that. So now over here, there are many men who are very chatty and they enjoy life and all that kind of stuff. They're out dancing and what have you. They really enjoy life. But if you go back into their homes and if you actually peep into their lives, they're very lonely inside the house. And a man needs a woman, probably vice versa also. The women can get on without a man generally. But men need somebody to get them out of that loneliness syndrome. Um, and the main reason is because they're just reserved and they're shy about you know getting out and doing stuff. You watch the men in your life, any one of you, and you'll find this happen. You'll find it's the women who are uh, taking charge, doing stuff. The men are in charge. Don't get me wrong on that either. The men are in charge, but they do this in context with a partner. If they're on their own, they wouldn't know what to do. Actually, a man wouldn't know what to do a lot of the time on his own. So that's why men need to be surrounded by family and a few good friends to be able to manage their lives, particularly particularly when they're widowed. You know, that's very important.
Right. There's somebody who's sent in a comment saying that sometimes it's tough to deal with loneliness. I was a severe patient of anxiety, but now I found the way out. I keep myself busy in doing things which I'm interested. That's as you said. There's a question that is coming. If I can develop self-love, do you think it will help bury loneliness?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, you've hit the nail on the head. You really do need to love yourself, and you start with your health, your physique, um, just what you're dressing. You need to be interested in yourself. And the moment you start developing just these basic things in terms of good health, exercise, dressing well, and then you take it forward, you know, it could be doing reading, it could be music, it could be attending online classes, it could be actually physically going for a pottery class. There are so many ways of keeping you busy. But this is all actually self love, and that self love is very important before you can love somebody else. This is
Right.
the key to actually loving individuals. If you don't love yourself and you're angry with yourself and you're um, sad about life, you're going to reflect that in your relationships. And that's when disaster hits you. So the answer is yes, self-love is very, very important.
Uh, there's a question which is the use of gadgets good or bad for coping with loneliness?
So it's a give and take. I think we live in a world of gadgets now, and it's not going to go. So it's entirely up to the individual how long you're going to spend with a gadget. I go into Facebook just to check whether I've had that's maybe once a day or twice a day, and likewise WhatsApp and some of the other apps. But it's very important to find a balance with all this. I mean, there's no point in just hanging on to your phone all day, scrolling and looking at messages or going through, say, Messenger or going through Reels. I find that all a waste of time. A. B. It's actually affecting your mind. It is affecting your mind. I have to tell you all a story about a young student in one of the schools up north. Her mother used to make all these reels. I'm just going slightly off topic. She used to make these reels, and this young child was being counseled by one of the counselors, and she complained about her mother. She was embarrassed that her mother was doing all this. And she said, how do I get my mother to stop doing all this? You know? And the mother had no idea how much damage she was creating uh, for this young girl. And then this particular child was being dragged into reels, so that she was seen. Now, the point with all this is it boils down to you and how much of time you feel is necessary. So, yes, since gadgets is here to stay with us, and there's no way that we can do without it now, you need to find a balance, but you need to spend quality time with human beings. You cannot replace a human being with a gadget. That I'm very clear about. As much as AI and all that is come into force, you still need the human touch. You still need somebody to talk to.
Of course,
And
it's like
Alexa is not the answer.
it's like seniors today. We have a publication, and we could have been just happy with that. And which is when in the lockdown we realized that we need to do a lot more than just that, and which is where the health webinar started, and then our seniors have talent started, and we are now we're going to end the 16th season very soon, and of course
Amazing.
our entire all our events. So it's just a way to connect with people, for people to connect with each other. And I know it's sounding like a bit of a plug, but it's not. Recently these people went out to Goa for a holiday, and we conducted a holiday for our first travel thing, and people went out and enjoyed themselves. And there's one which is now going to happen to Kerala in the month of January, and to Kashmir in the month of April. So clearly, even we as publishers, as standalone publications, feel that yes, while it's good to have these sessions that the magazine that we have, plus the content that we publish every day, but we have to go to the next level. Which is why, despite the fact that we had your lecture, we said, let us have
Yes.
you here. So all of you here, please do read the article. The Seniors Today magazine is up on seniorstoday.in. You can check it out. You can download it. It's for free. No conditions apply. And read the article. And I'm sure what Dr. Monika Das has said here, and you read it, and I'm sure it will help you a fair bit. Any final thoughts on what people should be doing? Just a couple of
Yeah.
tips. You already said many tips, but just
I just wanted to say a couple of things. Um, Martin Luther King said, he very rightly, he said, you don't have to see the whole staircase in front of you. He said, you need to try and take the first step. And the first step to getting out of being lonely or feeling lonely is actually forcing yourself out and making sure you're making contact. Human contact is very important. I was watching a video yesterday of an elderly teacher who had retired. And there were a couple of days where she just went through having made no contact with people. She was in the West, a teacher in the West. And it suddenly occurred to me, and this is something that I wanted to share with you all. You know, in India, we have, apart from family, most of us have staff who come in and help us out at home, which a lot of people don't have in the West, particularly unless you're affluent, a lot of the elderly don't have staff to come in and help them out unless social services takes over. But that's one of the contacts that we have apart from, if we're on our own, apart from, the fact that we may be part of a family. What occurred to me was one of the huge differences between living in India and perhaps being abroad is the fact that we're surrounded by people regardless. Whether we want it or not, we're surrounded by people. Um, and that's something that we're very lucky with. We're extremely lucky. If you look at the average adult abroad, they're very, very, very alone. Their children don't have time for them. Probably India is becoming like that, but children are still a lot more caring in the Indian subcontinent. So there are a lot of pros for us, which works here as compared to, say, somebody who's living abroad. So the idea of being alone is very different from being lonely. Being lonely can lead to depression, and it's very, very important to get out of that. And you have to take the first step if you want to get out of it and help yourself. And as somebody suggested, self-love is very important. You have to start with that first. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sorry. There's an interesting, there's a question that has come in. There's from somebody, I'll just take that. It says, every Diwali, I feel very depressed. And the reason is that, at my home, we have no guests, but our neighbors, there are, very many of them coming in. And Diwali is a reality check for us. What do we do?
So the first question, I need to counteract this with a question. Why don't you have anybody coming in? I mean, are you able to answer this for me over here? Can you type very quickly? Why is it that you don't have that you don't entertain and you don't have anybody coming in?
Well, the
Because
person
if you've spent your time correctly through the year, there are people who are going to be dropping in and visiting you. So what is it that you have not done for people not come to not for people not to come to your home? I mean, that's really the question. The other thing is, don't ever look at what's going on in your neighbor's garden, your neighbor's backyard. That's different. You're a different people. So the point over here is your personality and why you don't have anybody coming in, rather than you comparing yourself with your neighbor.
Right.
That's
Very well
that
said.
that's the key to this.
Absolutely. Very, very well said. And I think it's on this note, I would like to thank you very much for taking time out once again uh, for this session.
Thank you.
Do keep writing every month as you always do. And, we used to run this healthy mind group sometime back, and it kind of it was active for a while, and then it just died down. But perhaps at some time we can look at restarting it. If you do get the time, but otherwise, uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, all of you
I'd be happy to do that.
have a good festive season. We will be back again next Saturday at 5 p.m. for our session on Health Live at Seniors Today. And then, of course, the week after that, the weekend after that, we'll be taking a week off for Diwali. And we want you to discuss, things other than health on that weekend. That's the only reason why we are taking off. And, otherwise, the Seniors Today team will be working, and there will be a host of other things happening for you here. And thank you once again, Dr. Monika Das, for being
Pleasure.
there
Thank you.
for Seniors Today and for our readers, our viewers. And we have over 104 guests today here at attending your session, and which of course is a great thing, because people are benefiting a fair bit. I hope not all of them are very lonely, but I'm sure they will not be so after attending this session. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you.
Pleasure.